Hi, I'm Wendy Dale Young. I am originally from Los Angeles, a California girl. I was born in Glendale and raised in Studio City, but I was also raised in England. I come from a theatrical family. My dad was a rather famous actor back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. He was from England, so that's partly why we were in England, but also he kept getting films and jobs that would take him back to England. And several movies he did, Tom Thumb, The Time Machine, just to name a few. There's a bunch of them. I love living in England. I just thought it was the greatest place to be, but I also missed my home in Studio City and my friends, and especially my animals. I was always a lover of animals. My first kitty was, I think I was 5, and I went to some neighbor's house down the street, and there was a mommy cat that had a litter of kittens, and I just took one. It was just like, okay, thank you, I'm taking this kitty home. Also, my mom and dad always had standard poodles, so we had a parakeet named Chi-Chi. That parakeet lived a long time too. He was found out on the front of my dad's car. At first he thought it was an emblem, like he had a jaguar and an emblem, but it was a little parakeet that was exhausted. So he picked him up and brought him into the house, so we raised him. I kind of fell, and my dad's followed his footprints. My mom was a beautiful singer and dancer, and I think I was born to dance and act. I became a little ballerina. I actually danced with the junior ballet theater group out here in Los Angeles. We used to perform all around the valley, and actually went up to Santa Barbara area at one time. And then the Leningrad company came to town, and my company danced with the Leningrad, and then I danced with the Bolshoi Ballet, I think when I was about 10 years old. And from there I was offered scholarships with Ballet Russe, with San Francisco Ballet, with any ballet I had the pick of the litter. Unfortunately, my parents had something else in mind and sent me off to boarding school in St. Louis, Missouri, as I call it. So my scholarship dream went down the toilet, and I was in boarding school for about 4 years. I managed to get kind of kicked out. I got kicked out, and ended up going to normal school. And I started up ballet again. But then we moved, and I had to stop again. So, long story short, I was about 18 when I started dancing again, and I danced with Misha Moravsky. I had to dance with Russians because I was just used to dancing with the Bolshoi and what have you. So I did that, and I went to New York hoping to go to the Joffrey Ballet, but I ended up going into musical theater. There was something about musical theater. I saw Pippin, my first Broadway show on Broadway, and I fell in love with Bob Fosse. I fell in love with jazz dancing. I thought that was the greatest. I managed to do quite a few musicals. I did Broadway. I ended up being the assistant choreographer and director to a few shows. I went to England when I was 22 to stage a show in the West End and fell in love with England all over again, made some really good friends. When the show closed on Broadway, I went back to England and lived there, and I was acting. I was doing television and film, cabaret. And then, when I was about 26, I had physical illness that went undetected for years, and it pretty much stopped my career. I had to quit, which was a huge shock, and I was devastated, but I had to go with what life was offering me. So I tried to make the most of it and the best of it, and I did a lot of different things, like real estate, thinking I could study from bed and maybe I can get up on the good days and go to work. But that was later. That's when I started writing. Obviously, when you're home a lot and laying around, you write, and writing my feelings. And I wrote my first song when I was, I think, 16. I wrote a song. I used to play the guitar, so I would sing these little songs with the guitar. And then later on, in the 80s, my dad introduced me to, my dad's name was Alan Young, by the way, for those of you that were raised in the 60s or even the 80s. I think Mr. Ed, the Talking Horse, was a very popular show, and they kept doing reruns of it. So I think there's a few generations that know that show. And also he did Beverly Hills Cop 3. He was Uncle Dave. A lot of people know him just as Uncle Dave. It's really funny. Scrooge McDuck. He was Scrooge McDuck. But anyway, that was my dad. And we were very close. My mom, dad, and I were all very, very close. We were best of friends. And my friends were Daddy's friends, and Daddy's friends were my friends. And he had made a friend with a couple that lived behind him in a house. And Daddy told me, oh, he used to be with Motown. He's a songwriter, producer, wonderful guy. You got to meet him. So he introduced me to Michael B. Sutton. And we just hit it off. And Michael heard a couple of my songs that I had written on my own. He liked them. And he said, well, do you want to try writing with me? And I said, sure. So from there, we wrote. We wrote and wrote and wrote. We have a few title songs in movies, Roger Corman film, a few other films. And that really took me out of I feel like I was I was depressed. I'm not being well. You are depressed because you really can't do much. You can't be as social as you'd like to. You didn't. My career, like I said, went down the tubes. So this writing gave me an outlet, and it just helped me so much, and it uplifted me to the point where eventually I thought of a musical. I was actually asked to restage a musical that I'd done years ago, and in the rehearsal hall there was this huge picture of myself with my dancing partner. His name was Larry, and it was a ballroom dance, and I just looked at that photo and just saw this whole musical unfold in front of my eyes. So I started it, and that was back in 2002. It's taken several years for me to get to where now I am actually raising funds for it. If you're interested, I am on, you can look at me on wendydaleyoung.com, Wendy Dale Young on YouTube, and I'm also on a GoFundMe page, currently raising money to put Love Larry up as a stage reading and to promote the show as much as possible. It's a true story that happened to me. I fell in love with a bisexual man. He fell in love with me. We had a lot of problems that came up. It was a very tumultuous time in history, set against the backdrop of John Lennon's tragic death in 1980. Larry contracted had cancer, and he did pass away. But it's not depressing. The musical is uplifting. It's beautiful. It's all about hope and about love and about dealing with emotions, dealing with people. Everybody has their story, and it's uplifting, and the music is beautiful. So let me go back to, I also am an author. I wrote a book. As I said, I love animals. I had a horse as a child. I had dogs. I had cats. I had birds. I had a little dog named Liberty Pearl. I got her in 2004. She was Saddam Hussein's dog. We believe it was one of the daughter's dogs. And you'll have to read her story to see how she ended up in California. But that's the first book. She actually wrote it. She told me, I just typed out what she told me. So that book you can find on Amazon. It's called Behind the Eyes of Liberty Pearl by Wendy Dale Young. Again, Behind the Eyes of Liberty Pearl. She just passed away a few months ago. She was 20 years old. Nobody thought she'd live past a year or two. But I think with love, with healing, I had a Gordon Setter at the time that helped her become a dog. She had a wonderful, full life. So that I am very grateful for. I now have one dog named Willow. She is my pride and joy. She's a sweetheart. And that takes me to, I have just written a new song with Michael. I am now with Michael. We're actually working on my first EP. I came out with a beautiful cover song of The Look of Love. The Sound of LA is Michael B. Sutton's company. He produced it, and it came out about, wow, gosh, 2 months ago. And you can find that on YouTube as well, Wendy Dale Young, The Look of Love, and on my website, wendydaleyoung.com. So from there, we were thinking, what could we write? Let's write some new songs. And Michael knows how much I love my animals. And he was like, okay, I have this great groove. I have this wonderful music. Why don't you listen to it and see if we could come up with something? And I heard it and I went, wow, this is great. And I said, you know what? Animals are all about unconditional love. And Michael went, that's the title, Unconditional Love. So from there we wrote Unconditional Love. And that song should be coming out, we're hoping, in a couple more weeks for summertime. I repeat, my animals. I am so in love with my animals. I have 6 cats right now. I've had my Savannah, my first dog, Gordon Setter. I had little Chewy. I had little Liberty Pearl, who I mentioned, and now I have Willow. And I had to write a tribute to these beautiful beings, these animals that we have. And I know so many people out there, you people love your animals and your dogs and your cats. So I really wanted to make a beautiful tribute to all these beautiful animals out there. And I'm always wanting to save more and more. I am a rescue person. I have rescued so many animals and have found homes for them. And what I love writing songs is the passion I feel. The passion, well, the animal, obviously, there's a lot of passion there to write about them. To write a love song, it doesn't have to be a love song, but it usually ends up being a love song, doesn't it? A story, telling a story from your heart, the truth. To be brave enough to reveal your feelings and how you feel about something. To be really honest. I don't worry about rhyming and all that stuff. It's really what comes from the heart. That's what inspires me about writing songs. Writing songs, I have to say, have been very easy because of working with Michael. A lot of the songs that we have written, he would come up with the groove and with the music, and he would give me the music. And I gotta tell you, when I listened to that music, the lyrics came out to me. They just spoke to me. So actually, I have found it quite easy most of the time. If you have something to say, if you feel passionate with it, if you feel it needs to be told, again, it's got to come from your heart. It's just got to be truthful. Don't worry about, please don't worry, because you can get caught up in that of, I got to make it rhyme. I got to make it rhyme. Speak the words, speak the story, speak the truth, and you'll find that the rhyme will come out of what you are writing down, as long as it's from the heart. Again, I just say it's all about being honest and passionate. Well, right now I'm all over the radio. I did a cover, smooth jazz, for The Look of Love, and is hitting all the charts. It's doing fantastically. I am so proud of this. I'm thrilled. Out of that, of course, now I am busy writing, and we're going to be coming up with more songs. As I mentioned, Unconditional Love is the next song that will be coming out, and I'm sure it's going to hit all the charts as well, because The Look of Love has done so well for me. You can find it on my website, wendydaleyoung.com. You can find it on YouTube, wendydaleyoung.com. Wendy Dale Young, The Look of Love. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to releasing Unconditional Love as well. And you can look forward to that as well on my website and all over the radios.